Hi, Abby. Welcome to the Screw Being Unhappy podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
And I'm very excited talking about our inner mean girl today, our relationship to our bodies, our self-confidence, because this is a topic I love as a coach as well. And since we are both coaches, I am super excited what is going to come out of this conversation. And as I said, you talk a lot about inner mean girl, which is constantly telling us that we should be looking in different way, we should like our bodies should be different, but she also tells us at the same time that we are not good enough to actually achieve it. And I don't know, but I kind of imagine this is also part of your personal story, which is then mirrored in experience of other women. So would you share a bit more about your story and what is your relationship with your inner mean girl?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Like we always have a story. And for the longest time, I didn't realize that I had a story. I really just thought that I was living life and this is how I was looking at myself, the things that was doing. I thought was just what young girls and women did. So it really started for me before I was a teenager. I was in gymnastics and I had a coach one day made a comment about being careful not to gain weight because gymnasts need to be small. And every time I tell this story, I say, I don't believe that he meant harm by it. I don't even know if he knew that he said it. Many of the girls in the class probably didn't hear it or didn't think anything of it. But for me, that comment stuck with me. And that started a journey of like 20 plus years of watching everything that I ate, labeling food as good or bad, being very restrictive with my eating, counting calories, tracking, flying from one diet that was out there to the next, excessively exercising, talking really negative to myself, looking in the mirror and just looking at all of the things that I didn't like that should be different, looking at magazine covers. This was back before social media. So looking at magazine covers and thinking, but I don't look like that. So I must not look right, or I must try to do these things. And, at 12, 13 years old, I would rip out all of the meal plans and all of the exercise routines that I would find in these magazines, and I would save them and I'd hide them away in my room. And at night, I would do these exercises thinking, well, if I do this, then I'll look like that. If I eat this, then I'll look like that. And that never came, right? It was always, but I'm doing all of the things and that's not what I look like. So I must be doing it wrong. I must be having to change something. I must work harder. I must eat less. And it was just this negative spiral that consumed me so much that I didn't have fun when I was out with my friends. If I allowed myself to go out with my friends, I didn't eat cake at birthday parties. I would I'd enjoy something and then I'd go out for a run after. And it was just this cycle of beating myself up and really forcing myself to shrink who I was as a person, both physically, but also from a mental standpoint as well.
Thank you for sharing that. And what I'm curious now, what happened? What was the turning point? Because you now kind of coach women how not to measure everything, how to be confident, how to be happy with their bodies without obsessively doing what you basically described you were doing yourself. So what changed?
Yeah.
What made you
Yeah, so it
change?
was when I became pregnant with my son. He just turned 9. So 9 years ago, I found out I was pregnant. It is like the happiest moment of my life, but it was also a moment that really checked me in my spot, because it was in that moment that I realized for the first time in my life, I was going to have to do something, and I wanted to do something that I had spent my entire life avoiding, and that was gaining weight. And it was really scary for me because one, I wanted to gain weight. I wanted to have a healthy pregnancy. I wanted to have a healthy baby. I wanted to do all of the things that I needed to do. And with that comes weight gain, right? You're growing a human, weight gain. But I also didn't know how to do that. And it scared me that I wasn't going to allow myself to do it because I had been avoiding it for so long. And it was in this time where I felt this fear that I realized what I had been doing all of my life. It was like the story that I had told myself for 20 some years started to play out in my head in a way that didn't feel like the facts of life, like I was reading the news, right? That, I needed to be this weight and I needed to look this way and my legs needed to be this and that and all of the things. And I really just started to listen to those stories that I had been telling myself and to hear them in a way that I hadn't heard them before. And it took a lot of work, but I really started to pay attention to them and to break them down and to question it and to work through that story in a way that felt very uncomfortable and very hard and, pushed against a lot of resistance. But I knew on the other side was that healthy pregnancy, was that healthy baby. And what I came to find out was that it was also a healthier life, which, prior to that, I would have told you I was the healthiest person alive, right? Like I would have been like, I'm eating all the right things, I'm working out. But it made me realize how unhealthy that relationship with food, with movement, with my body, with the way I talk to myself had actually been.
And I love how you describe how you suddenly basically saw the stories your inner mean girl was telling you. In my coaching, I usually call her the judge. And I love saying that once we would repeat whatever we tell to ourselves to other people, it would seem so brutal and so rude. And we, in most cases, if we are normal, I think people, we would never say it to somebody else. Yet we say these things to ourselves on daily basis. So from all this where you're coming from, and for the women or men who are listening, why we should not listen to these stories. And I think you kind of touched on it, but maybe you still have some more insight why we shouldn't listen to it and actually how to stop listening to it.
Yeah. So I actually think that we should listen to it. I don't think that we should believe her. And I think that was the big thing for me, was that all of my life, or the majority of my life, I was believing the things that she was saying. And when things started to change was when I listened to her and I got very curious as to, what am I really saying here? Is this true? Is this helping me at all? What is this actually creating in my life? And I started to see the ripple that when I told myself I needed to lose weight, or I needed to go burn off those calories, or I needed to stay small, or I just didn't like the way that I looked. If I was thinner, I'd be happier, and all of those things, and just allowed myself to get curious about it. It started, like you said, would you say that to somebody else? When I started to actually listen to it, I was like, this sounds so ridiculous, right? But I had to listen to it. So I think there is a difference between listening and hearing it and listening and believing it. And that is what I would encourage everybody to do, is to not avoid that voice inside your head, to not think that inner mean girl or that judge shouldn't be there. She or he or they, whoever it is always going to be there. That is our primitive brain, right? It's our brain's way of signaling discomfort, which it's going to associate with danger and try to keep us safe. But that doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that that's what we should act upon, that that's what we should believe. And so what I teach my clients is allow yourself to hear it, get curious about it, and then decide, does it benefit you to listen to that voice, right? Because sometimes we have a voice and it actually benefits us to listen to it to keep us safe. But if it's holding you back, if it creates a negative feeling in your life, if it creates a negative outcome in your life, what you really want to do is to be able to turn that dial down, right? To not let that be the loudest voice in your head. And I truly believe we have that inner mean girl, but I also believe that we have a confident self. And that confident self is just quieter most of the time than that inner mean girl is. But when we allow ourselves to hear that negative voice, that judge, that inner mean girl, and turn it down just a little bit, that confident self gets louder. And then we can decide. It's all about making the conscious choice. What do you want to believe? How do you want to feel? What actions do you want to take? And which of those voices, what are the thoughts that are going to get you there?
Yeah, 100% agree. Like, this is also what I teach my clients, maybe in slightly different words. What I love saying is, as you said, the inner mean girl, the judge, we all have it, even Michelle Obama, even Marie Forleo, all of us, right? And it's not going to go away. So what I like saying is, like, you can hear it and then you can say, like, okay, I hear you, lady, go and take a seat and I'm doing my thing.
Yes. I love that. Take a seat. I always say, like, get in the back seat. Like, I'm driving the car. You can be here, but you're in the back seat.
So I kind of imagine this is a habit, because that's how we were growing up, how we were taught that listening to these stories, it's a habit. So what, maybe in addition to this, or maybe you can build up on this, what would be the habits we need to create to build the confidence, not only around the food or our body, but generally in life?
Yeah. So number one, hear that inner voice, hear that inner mean girl, hear that judge, get curious about it. I always recommend writing those thoughts down, at least to start with, like getting it out of your head and onto paper, just so that you can recognize them when they come back up again, because they will come back up again, right? It's our default thinking. We've told ourselves these stories for so long. It's going to be our comfort zone. It's going to be our natural tendency. And so becoming aware of those stories, having compassion for those stories, letting go of the judgment of, I shouldn't be talking to myself this way, I wouldn't talk to a friend this way. You know, that's just layering on guilt and judgment, which is exactly what that inner voice does to us most of the time anyway. So have compassion for that, release judgment of that, and lean into the discomfort. I think that is the biggest thing that we miss, is that as soon as we tiptoe out of that comfort zone, it feels hard. It feels uncomfortable. It feels challenging. That voice comes at us in a different way of, like, we're never going to be able to do this. This is too hard for me. Other people can do it, but I can't do it. And being willing to step into that discomfort, knowing that that discomfort is temporary. We have all of this discomfort build up in our lives from this inner voice. Sitting with this inner mean girl, with this judge constantly coming at us, is the most uncomfortable place that we can be. And that's going to be a much longer term discomfort than stepping out of that comfort zone into that temporary discomfort, doing the thing that we know we really want to do, right? Like going out and walking or running your first mile is not comfortable, but you can't run a marathon without running 1 mile. So you have to get out and run that mile. You have to take those first steps. You have to be able to walk it, right? So do that one thing, even if it doesn't feel uncomfortable. And the more we do it, the easier it's going to become. The faster and more efficiently you're going to get through telling that inner mean girl to go sit down, get in the back seat, right? The easier it's going to feel, or I will say the simpler it'll feel, right? I don't know that it really ever feels easy, but the simpler it will be, because you'll know how to turn it down and turn that confident self up.
Yeah. I loved how you talked about the long-term and short-term discomfort. I think this is really interesting perspective, how to look at it, because Yes, we love doing what we are comfortable with, what is familiar to us, even if it's bad for us. Like a great example is staying in a relationship that is not good for us, yet it's familiar, it's comfortable, we don't have to do the uncomfortable. But actually, I love how you pointed out that actually listening to the judge, to the inner mean girl, it's actually causing us discomfort. And most of the times we probably don't even realize it. So this was a big aha moment for me. Like, look at it also from this perspective, that feeling like instead of focusing on the discomfort, going to the new thing, focus on the pain it's causing us when we believe this voice.
Yes. Yes. And we often don't think about it that way, right? We
Yeah.
think, oh, I'm just fine where I am, right? But are you really fine where you are? No matter what it is, like you said, are you really fine in that relationship where you don't feel safe, or you don't feel like your best self, or you don't feel valued and loved? Are you really fine feeling like there's so much more to life, that you don't have the energy, that you're carrying around the extra weight, whatever it may be, that you're stuck in a job that you don't want to be in? Is it really fine? Or are you just comfortable, and are you a little bit afraid of stepping out of that discomfort? And are you willing to step out of that discomfort? And what do you need to believe is on the other side in order to step out of that?
And all of this, what we just described, all this work about stopping believing the lies we are told by ourselves, it sounds simple, but it's really, really hard. And there is lots of obstacles to it. I can think of few, but what would be the most common obstacles you or your clients face doing this work, and how to work around them?
Yeah. It's funny that you asked this, because I was just writing these out yesterday. And so I think the biggest things that I see is, number one, we oftentimes set a timeline for ourselves. We think, I'm going to give myself X amount of weeks or X amount of months to achieve this goal. And we think that is going to be the thing that inspires us and motivates us and keeps us on track. But really what that does is layers on pressure. We think we have to get it done in this point, in this amount of time. It has us looking at, am I doing it right, versus what am I doing right for me? And then it has us feeling frustrated. It has us judging ourselves. It demotivates us when we're not meeting this timeline. But the reality is we set these timelines with no merit, right? There is nothing out there that says this is the amount of time that it's going to happen. We just put these false timelines in our mind and then think that it's all gone wrong when it doesn't happen in that amount of time. And the reality of what is, it was never supposed to happen in that amount of time. But we don't see that. We see it as failure and we give up. So that would lead to the next one, is we're afraid to fail. We see failure as a problem. But failure, I think, is the biggest opportunity for us, because it shows us what didn't work. What did we try and what didn't work? And not what didn't work from a place of judgment, but what didn't work for me, and what do I need to do differently? What do I want to do differently? What can I do differently that's just going to take me one step further? And with that, like fearing failure, I would say one of the biggest obstacles that I see with all of the women that I work with, I work primarily with women, so that's why I'm speaking to women specifically, but I see it across the board, right? I've worked with males in the past, and I see this as well, is that we fear our emotions. We feeling frustrated. We fear feeling alone. We fear feeling not motivated. And we think that that is a problem. We try to hide from them, right? We either turn to food, we shop, we compare ourselves to others. We don't take any steps forward because we don't think we have the motivation to do it. we hide from those emotions, when in reality, leaning into those emotions and understanding them, allowing them to just be, and to really draw into, okay, why am I feeling this way? What's happening in my body? What does it feel like? What do I really need? What we really need is not the things that we typically lean on. And we know that because we typically feel guilty after we do those. So I would say those are the biggest obstacles, and that they all lead to just giving up too soon, right? All of us, if we haven't reached our goal, chances are we've just given up too soon, most likely from one of those things.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, and it's not like it doesn't happen to us who are coaches as well, right? It happens to us all the time. And like just when you were talking about the timeline, it's so true, like that we put some arbitrary number, we saw other people reaching, or like what I became recently quite allergic to in a business environment, like reach the 7 figures or make 10K a month. And like every time I say it, I just unsubscribe if I had the person in my inbox, because it's so stressful and it put so much pressure on us, and it made us compare to other people. And actually I had a not 10K or 7 figures goal. I had a certain goal since beginning of 2022, and I worked hard and I couldn't hit it. And after 1 year I was like, I'm done. I think I burn out. Like I set a new goal, and my new goal was, I just, in the end of every day, I want to look back and say I had a great day. And
That's so good.
that's when things start changing, because actually, one, I was enjoying my days, I was not stressed. And then I allowed myself to change the strategy, and I hit the goal last month. And it
Oh,
was
so
like
good.
I just pushed through it, and it was almost double than what I wanted. And
Oh my gosh, I was going to say it probably felt easy to you because you took the pressure off.
yeah, and like suddenly something which was impossible, suddenly you do it because you take the pressure off and you don't put the timeline. So I just want to encourage
Yeah.
everybody who is listening that it happens to all of us. And
Yeah.
the thing I love saying is that we really shouldn't compare ourselves to our future selves, but to the past, where we are coming from.
Yes. And I think on that note of, if you knew that that goal that you wanted to achieve was inevitable, if you knew it was going to happen no matter what, how long would you be willing to work for it? If you knew that it was happening, like there was no question, like that is a fact of the world, you're going to get that goal, you just didn't know how much time it was going to take, you would have kept working towards that goal. But in
Yeah.
our minds, we think, but it didn't happen yet, so it must never going to be happening. It must not be happening, right? Couldn't get that out right. But it all just comes back to, again, how we're talking to ourselves, what we're believing. What we believe is just what we tell ourselves over and over and over again, so that it feels like the truth. That's all the belief is. And if you can believe in yourself, if you can believe in your goal, if you can believe in all of the progress that you're making, more than that timeline, more than that inner mean girl or that judge, you will always reach your goal. You'll always keep going. But
Yeah.
we just put our belief in the wrong spots, right? We think, for me, like my clients in the health and wellness space, they put their belief in the perfect meal plan, the perfect workout, the perfect timeline, in feeling motivated, right? In before and after photos and evidence that this works. But what works for somebody may not work for you if you don't have that belief there. So we have to believe in ourselves enough to endure the failures. Failure is going to happen. It's part of the process. And to keep going, to hit those road bumps and keep going.
Yeah.
And to celebrate all of the small wins, not just the big wins, but the small wins along the way. Like you said, I just want to look back and know, like, I had a great day today. That may feel like a small win to somebody, and it may feel like a big win to another person. But by you looking back and being like, I had a great day today, you can enjoy the process. You can simplify the process. You can make it feel easier in the end, even if it didn't feel easy in the moment.
Exactly. Exactly. And I wish whoever is listening that you can take this advice and kind of release a bit of the pressure. And what I wanted to add, also release a bit of the control, because we are all kind of control freaks and we feel we need to have it under control. We need to know exactly when is this goal going to happen. And it just unfortunately doesn't work that way. We wished, but it doesn't.
Right.
And Abe, what I'm also curious about is just kind of to get into the secrets of your work. What is the most uncommon, generally like out there, uncommon advice you love giving to your clients?
So I think it's what I just told you, which is that the secret, my secret to achieving your goals is not the tangible things that we believe they are. It's not the timeline. It's not the meal plans. It's not the job. It's not whatever it is that you are working towards. The secret to achieving your goals is that belief. It's the belief, and it's like a little triangle of belief, right? It's the belief that your goals are possible. So the belief in your goals, it's the belief in yourself that you are capable of achieving those goals and you are willing to work towards that goal no matter what. And the belief in your progress, that you are willing to celebrate every small little win along the way, because when we look for those small wins, we will always find them. If we're only ever looking for those big ones, we focus on the problems and we don't focus on that progress that we have made. So really looking for, well, what small win did I have today?
That made me think.
What did I enjoy about my day? Did I have a good day today?
Yeah. So that made me think actually the way remembering our even small wins. It's an exercise my coach gave to us during a retreat we had with the other coaches. And she told us, look back 10 years and every year write all those wins. And we were like, oh my God, are you crazy? And then we start writing, and then like 10 years, it's long time. And then when you see everything written, you see like, oh my goodness, I did amazing stuff. Or the changes you see like from 5 years ago, from 10 years ago.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Even from yesterday, if you did that same exercise just from yesterday, I bet you could fill a page with all of the different things, all of the things that went well, all of the things that you're grateful for, all of the good choices that you made, or the choices that you feel proud of, the choices that moved you just 1 inch closer to a new version of you, a happier version of you, a more grateful version of you, whatever that may be. You will always find it if you choose to look for it.
Exactly. I'm loving this conversation, but unfortunately we are coming close to the end. But I have a couple of quick questions I like to ask every guest, because what I really want the ladies and men who are listening really to get inspired and go into the action. So the first one is, what lifts you up when you are down, and who are the people who inspire you? Actually, I put two questions in one, so you can deal with it.
So what lifts me up? For me, it's always moving my body. That just gives me, especially outside, I love to go for a walk. I'm fortunate enough to live near the water, the beach. So walking out on the beach just brings me a sense of calm, allows me to reconnect with what's most important in my life, and to hear those thoughts and to let go of the ones that do not serve me. So moving my body and being near water lift me up. And then with that, my family, my kids, honestly, my kids are the ones where I find the most inspiration from. I feel like if we all looked at children with an eye for inspiration, we would all be different people. The amount of energy and life and compassion that they have is something that we have outgrown. We have lost along the way, and yet it is so inspiring. And to just take a little bit of their curiosities and their love for life and movement and everything, I think is just so inspiring. I could write like a million posts from just watching my kids, right? Or do a million talks just from what I gather from them.
Agreed. And what would be the one thing you would want the listeners to do right now after they finish listening to our conversation?
Yeah. So I would go back to, that original exercise that I mentioned that helped me when I was really going through this journey. What started my journey is really take time for yourself and write down your inner dialogue. Write it all down without any thought of what is coming out of your head, without any judgment of those words. Write it down, get it out of your head and onto paper, and then allow yourself to read it without judgment. Read it with compassion in your heart, for this is what I'm telling myself. And then make the honest, conscious decision of what you want to believe and what you want to let go of. Cross out any of those thoughts that you have, any of that story that you've been telling yourself that doesn't serve you, that makes you feel any way that you don't want to feel, right? And it's not to say you have to be a positive person. You just don't want to choose the negativity. You don't want to choose the guilt or the shame. So just get rid of those thoughts. Allow yourself to cross them out, so when they pop back in your head, you can put up the flag and be like, hold up, I'm not supposed to believe this. And then you can choose to let it go and come back to that. It's going to be a practice. Like you said, even as coaches, we have to practice. Wait a minute, this thought is not helpful for me. I have to let it go. And sometimes we can do that in a moment. And sometimes it takes us a longer bit of time, but keep practicing it.
Mm-hmm. And I will write it in the show notes. I always do write the inspiration, the things which lift you up, and the one thing to do for the people to see it in written so they can actually do it, because no one's life changed just from listening to a podcast or reading a book. So thank you so much for sharing that and being here with us. And I know you have some amazing gift for the people who are listening. So what is the gift about? I was excited to see it because I'm in the period of something in that line. I don't want to say before you say it, and where we can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I'm most active there. My handle is Wellness with Abbey H. And that is also my website. So I would recommend that you follow me on Instagram and then join my email list if that is helpful for you. That's where I share most of my information, is via email. And then for your listeners, I do have a journaling guide that I'd be happy to share with them. That's going to help them to kind of work through some of these things as well. So I can share that link with you, or maybe I have already done that already, but I can get that to you, and that's going to help them to do this work.
Okay, everything will be in the show notes. So go and follow Abbey, go and get the guide. And if you have any questions, just drop any of us a message, email, or comment under the YouTube video if you are watching the video. And yeah, thank you, Abbey, for being here. It was so much fun. I think we could go on and on on this topic. But really, thank you. It was my pleasure.
Oh, thank you for having me. I loved being here.